it's my pleasure to present them to you for the public administration of the oath of Canadian citizenship.
Thank you, Clerk Bob, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Bonjour, it's an honor to be here with such a wonderful group of people. Bienvenue, ladies and gentlemen, mesdames, messieurs. It's my duty to welcome you in the name of Her Majesty the Queen to your citizenship ceremony. Isn't anybody excited about that? Indeed, ladies and gentlemen, at this hour, you are the most important people in Canada. And this ceremony is a state ceremony. It's not just a nice formality. It's equally important as opening Parliament, or swearing new government members, or cabinet ministers. We are here because you're here. This theater would be empty, probably, if you weren't here this morning. I'd like to thank Jean Makos and Ms. Tiara Said of the South Okanagan Immigrant and Community Services for organizing this ceremony. Also, they do great work. Also want to acknowledge His Worship Andrew Jacobite, the Mayor of Penticton, and I think Councillor Santis is here as well, Judith. And today, for me, is somewhat of a homecoming as well, because I called Penticton home between 1972 and 1990 myself. I was an executive with Okanagan Radio, and this wonderful community graciously named me Outstanding Citizen in 1985. So being here today is a special treat for me as well. Before we continue, because of his schedule, works hard on your behalf, I'd like to introduce His Worship, Mayor Andrew Jacobite, to welcome you to today's ceremony as well, and welcome the Canadians in waiting.
Thank you. I just, on behalf of the city, Penticton City Council, we want to congratulate you, welcome you. It's a very exciting day for everyone here, and I want to acknowledge the South Okanagan Immigrant Community Services for actually helping to arrange this to happen here in Penticton, and all the work that they're doing to bolster creating multiculturalism and ethnicity in our community. We don't do enough of that to celebrate that. Here is certainly one of the first steps, and I think that's crucial for our city, but it's imperative for community. And that's one thing we want to build on and we want to expand on. We're very excited and welcoming for our new citizens. We're wanting to ensure that you're valued, and we want to be able to celebrate whatever traditions, culture, and ethnicity that you bring to our community, because that's what helps our community grow and be stronger. So I'm brief. I just wanted to say hello and welcome and congratulate you. This is a very exciting, very big day for I think 60 of you, and that's quite exciting to have you in our community, and thank you for choosing Penticton and area as your place to come live, work, and play. Enjoy the day.
And of course, ladies and gentlemen, today began with a journey. Some of you just decided there's opportunity in Canada, let's move there. And you wrenched your way from all that you knew and came to Canada. Some of you came to study, use your new skills on behalf of this country. And someone fell in love with someone or the country. But it's not unusual as well in a group of 55 or 60 to know that there's someone who spent months or even years in a refugee camp, living under canvas, wondering whether you'd ever be safe. Each of your experiences is different. Your circumstance and reasons for choosing Canada and applying for citizenship are yours alone. There are 5 requirements to become a Canadian citizen, and Parliament was serious when it set out the conditions for citizenship. Because so many people apply to become Canadian citizens, you had to wait for this day to finally arrive. There are 1 million people who are lined up at our embassies around the world who want to become permanent residents. Only 280,000 or so will be admitted. And of those, 85%, like you, will become Canadian citizens. It's the largest pickup of citizenship of any country in the world. The citizenship officers and staff who are here with me today work hard to cause you and tens of thousands of others to become part of the Canadian family. And indeed, for me, it's a privilege to work with them. More than that, it's an honor to serve you and all Canadians, because as a citizenship judge, I get to experience from you the value placed on being a citizen of this caring nation and being amongst caring people. And I know you are caring people, because if you didn't care, you wouldn't be here. It's that simple. And it's such a wonderful place that you live in, this caring community with so many facilities that are driven by caring people, like the South Okanagan Immigrant Association, like the Okanagan Similkameen Neurological Society. And I want to thank Judith Sentis for her wonderful stewardship of that organization for 20 years. I was part of the founders. Marvelous organizations in this town that are driven by the people, people who care. South Okanagan Women in Need, this theater, Rotarians. Eva Cleland, the theater is named after. Eva never asked you to do anything. She only told you what you were going to do on behalf of this community. Of course, what you all have in common is a desire for a better life for you and your children and your children's children into the future. There are 55 of you this morning, and you represent 18 different countries. We're going to call a meeting afterwards. We are going to solve all the problems in the world. Because that's what Canadians do. We make good things happen for others. And I know it took effort for you to earn citizenship. I hope you're proud to be here today. To get here, you had to learn about Canada. Many of you had to learn a new language and just new ways of living day by day. Think back to the beginning, how many questions you had. But in the end, ladies and gentlemen, you were invited here today because of the hope and the trust that Canada places in you, and because you have shown the courage and the willingness to accept and acknowledge new traditions, history, symbols, values, institutions, and adopt them as your own. Make them work for you. In a few minutes, I'm going to lead you in the citizenship oath in both of official languages. You're going to do fine. Together, we'll profess our loyalty to Her Majesty, Queen Elizabeth II, just as do members of Parliament and the legislature, military, police officers. Let's see. That young lady could be Prime Minister one day. Why not? I hope for some of the younger people in the room it's not the last time you do this. Because if you do it again, it means you have accepted a position of responsibility in Canadian society. You've become a peace officer. You've joined the Canadian Forces. You've been elected to Parliament. And a long list of occupations where we swear allegiance to Canada in the name of our head of state, promising to obey the law and do our duty. And the oath is not a one-way thing. You don't just say it and nothing comes back. The sovereign, of course, has promised in the coronation oath to govern the peoples of Canada according to Canadian law and custom. It's thereby guaranteed that the Canadian state, the Canadian crown, will protect our rights and freedoms. So take the words of the oath to heart. It is the bond between you and your fellow citizens, those who came here with you today, those you will later pass on the street or just line up behind in the coffee shop or the grocery store. And of course, being a Canadian is more than having just that piece of paper. It means sharing a common set of values, having specific freedoms and rights, being a full member of the Canadian family that requires that you actively take responsibility for those duties. Now, the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms begins with the declaration that Canada is founded upon principles that recognize the supremacy of God. And while that phrase highlights the importance of all religious traditions to Canadian society, whether you're a believer or not, it also highlights the dignity and the worth of each individual person. The Charter also states that Canada is founded upon the rule of law. Men and women like Corporal Don Wigglesworth from the Royal Canadian Mounted Police dedicate their lives to maintaining that condition in our society. And of course, this is a democracy. Canada is a country of democracy. That didn't just happen either. It's a country where individual rights and freedoms are respected. But brave Canadians fought, and thousands died for these rights and freedoms we hold so dear. And like you, they came from many different nations. They held different beliefs. Their commitment to Canada can never be forgotten or go unrecognized. And I include Jonathan Snyder in that list, who I knew as an Army cadet in this community. When we recite the oath of citizenship together, let's remember that today Canadians have life for the choosing because of the sacrifice that was made by tens of thousands of men and women who fought to establish the conditions that attracted you to become a Canadian. Amongst those people are the legacy of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. And today, March 10th, 1873, the Northwest Council called for the formation of the Northwest Mounted Police, formed to patrol the northwest of Canada. The members of the RCMP have since served Canada in war and peace, in the South African War, the Russian Rebellion, 2 world wars in Korea. In fact, at the beginning of the Second World War, the Canadian military had no military police. The RCMP stepped forward and 1 Provo company was formed, and they were overseas in 6 months. And that contribution of Canada's defense continues today. From 2003 to the present, members of the RCMP have worked alongside the soldiers, sailors, and Air Force members in Afghanistan, where they're attempting to build a civil police force, and of course in Haiti, where they're assisting to maintain civil society. For 142 years, the RCMP has protected our communities across Canada and abroad. I'm grateful for this man's service. Now, at the same time, we're fortunate in this country that there's no obligation to serve in the armed forces or indeed law enforcement. However, you can defend Canada every day simply by developing and demonstrating good citizenship, by taking responsibility for yourself and your family, by voting in elections, accepting jury duty, obeying the law, and taking leadership roles to make your community, this province, Canada, a better place. And just by taking an interest in what the men and women of the Canadian Armed Forces, the RCMP, and our diplomats are doing around the world, you contribute to the defense of the freedoms that we hold so dear. In a few minutes, you're going to have all the rights of Canadian citizenship. The right to vote in elections, run as a candidate. You can have a Canadian passport. As the clerk said, let the system catch up. Key to the world, 117 countries without a visa. Travel as you please. You're free to live and work in any province or territory from sea to sea to sea. And whether you're a man or whether you're a woman, you have the right to any job that hard work and talent can obtain. That's not possible in some countries of the world. In return, what does Canada ask? We already know the answer to that. I've already gone too long, but we'll talk about it again. That you obey the law, that you contribute as you're able to make a difference in your community. Particularly important that you use your vote when the occasion arises. Because, ladies and gentlemen, those who give of their time, talent, and resources create a better country because they know it can and should be done. And each of us has something to give. An active, engaged citizen does not stand on the sidelines and watch the parade go by. Citizenship demands participation, involvement, and contribution. So as the great Canadian soldier and poet Dr. John McCrae wrote about 100 years ago, to you we throw the torch. It's yours. Hold it high. I'd like you to stand now. We're going to administer the oath of citizenship. And would everybody stand? I would invite those who are guests here today to raise your right hand with our friends who are Canadians in waiting and recite the oath of citizenship with them, thereby reaffirming your love for this great country And if you're not a citizen yet, it's probably great practice for the future anyway. Raise your right hand and repeat after me. In a loud voice, let everybody hear. I swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to Her Majesty, Queen Elizabeth II, Queen of Canada, her heirs and successors, and that I will faithfully observe the laws of Canada and fulfill my duties as a Canadian citizen. Now you can put down your hand for a moment. We're going to do it in the other official language, a symbolic gesture that recognizes the equality of French and English in the institutions of Parliament and across the Government of Canada, and of course your right to be served in either official language when you deal with the federal government. So, répétez après moi, raise la main droite, raise your right hand. Je jure que je serai fidèle et porterai sincère allégeance à Sa Majesté, la Reine Elizabeth II, Reine de Canada, à ses héritiers et successeurs, que j'observerai fidèlement les lois du Canada et que je remplirai loyalement mes obligations de citoyenne canadienne. You are Canadians in both official languages.